All right, let's go now to Ari Goldkind, a criminal defense lawyer who's on the line. And I thought of Ari last week when the news came out about the sentencing for that 70's show star, Danny Masterson. If you recall, last week he was sentenced to 30 years to life in prison for raping two women more than 2 decades ago. And when that story came out, you know what I did? I went to Google and I started to do Google News searches to find out how the Canadian justice system would treat similar situations. And what I found through my searching, I said, man, we got to talk more about this. That's why Ari Goldkind's on the line. Ari, welcome back to the show.
Good to be with you, Elias.
So first things first, why don't you give me your take from your position, your reaction when you heard the sentencing in the U.S. of Danny Masterson, 30 years to life for those two rapes?
Well, I'll tell you, as a citizen and as a lawyer, I had very strong reactions. The first one is the story has received really a lack of attention, a lack of discussion about what's going on here. He received a sentence that I think was so outside of the acceptable range, even in the United States. He received a sentence that somebody from a different background would not get. We're seeing example after example. I monitor these of people from different groups doing heinous things, raping children, sexually abusing children, and not getting very long at all. And for these 2003 offenses, 2003, he received the maximum essentially in the U.S. after a second trial, a jury that was deliberating for 7 days on a retrial where the first jury was hung. The judge seemed to me completely out to get him from her pretrial rulings to what could be put before the second judge, and basically hammered him in a way that I have really not seen in these kinds of cases. And the part of the story that I think has escaped a lot of scrutiny here is the role of the Church of Scientology, of which Danny Masterson is a big part of. And the role of the Church of Scientology in saying to these three accusers, the jury didn't have a decision on the third, but on the first two convicted them on the second trial. If you look at what these women alleged the Church of Scientology did to them when they originally reported this, I guess a couple decades ago now, the idea that the Church of Scientology isn't up on some kind of criminal charge is really quite fascinating to me. And then you combine that, now I'll put my lawyer hat back on, with the kind of different sentences in Canada compared to the sentence that Danny Masterson got in the United States, 30 years to life in prison. He probably wouldn't even have gotten 1/8 of that if it happened in Canada.
Okay,
and many Canadians will be concerned about that.
The math, that's are we talking about 4 years?
Yeah, so if he was a first-time offender in Canada for these kinds of historical sexual offenses, he would probably be looking at something in the range, and again, something in the range of 2, maybe to 6 years, maybe. And remember, Elias, here's the kicker, and I'm not saying people should celebrate this or be upset about it. I'm just laying it out. If he got somewhere in the range of the 2 to 6 years, let alone if he was convicted, but let's say he was, because we've seen the Gomeshis, we've seen the Jacob Hogards, we've seen high-profile cases and how they proceed in Canada, he would do, without question, Elias, 1/3 of those 2 to 6 years.
Yeah.
So he would be out very quickly. Now, you compare that to the United States, where he cannot, and I emphasize this, and again, many people will celebrate this, I'm not lost on that, he will spend 30 years behind bars, even with a clean record, no parole. He's got a 9-year-old child. He's got a wife. It is a fundamentally different system that I think in the United States works in many ways for many kinds of cases, but I fundamentally do not think it works in this case. I think this is a miscarriage of justice, and I think it's quite likely to be turned over on appeal.
So on the Canadian side of things, on how we deal with these types of crimes, are we too lax? Do we need to take, like, maybe we don't go to 30 years to life, but do we need to take these serious charges and deal with them more seriously?
I think we do when certain circumstances are present. Here's what I would say. I think we have to take demographics out of the criminal justice system. It shouldn't matter what your background is, absent very specific and exceptional circumstances. For example, if you're from a certain community and you were born with fetal alcohol syndrome and you don't have the same opportunities as anybody else, those circumstances should be quite limited. And Canada is really moving in the direction of a two-tiered justice system. That's fundamentally a problem. Why, Elias? Because the only thing sentencing should really be concerned with, in my view, and I speak for myself, completely for myself here, it should be concerned with two things. Is the person dangerous? Are they a ticking time bomb? Are they likely to reoffend again? Or is the person changed, rehabilitated, and we're unlikely to ever see them in a court or police station again? That, to me, is where the conversation has been lost in Canada, and quite frankly, lost in the United States for long, because we know we have many nonviolent people locked up in prisons in the United States who are nonviolent. They're not recidivist. That means they're not doing it every day. We've lost the range. We've really lost the flavor, Elias, of dangerousness versus other considerations, from Me Too to Weinstein to you name it.
Ari, just on the point you brought up and sort of going towards a two-tier justice system, and we interviewed on this program the previous Justice Minister, David Lametti, when he made some changes to go down those lines, and he defended it, right? He really, really defended those changes under that have happened over the 8 years that the Liberals have been in power.
David, it's the woke Olympics, but I digress.
Yeah, but I want to get your take on the new Justice Minister. I think you went to school with him. I think I saw that somewhere.
I did. I went to school with him. He was a very hard worker, very bright guy, and I think because of the organization or the outfit he finds himself in now, he's saying things that are demonstrably untrue, including what he said on the first day of being the Justice Minister, that crime is down, people feeling that they're less safe is bunk, they're all just making it up in their head. But he said very quickly, Elias, one thing I did like that nobody picked up, media didn't pick up, which is when he was asked about being a Ismaili Muslim, he said any child or any person born into this country who makes it as far as I did has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is a country that welcomes people and lets the cream rise to the top. People didn't pick up on that. I thought it was a very telling statement in a country where we're always told everything is racist, systemically racist, supremacist. Nobody picked up on that line of his. But yes, I went to law school with him, and I was very disappointed when he said that the concern that Canadians are feeling, that crime and violence is rising, changing, shooting, machetes, pipes being used at festivals, all of that is in Canadians' heads. I thought that was irresponsible.
So maybe he can say that to maybe sort of make people not be so fearful of going out of the house. But do you believe that when it comes to policy, he may be a little bit tougher when it comes to sentencing and maybe issuing some directives where judges can be a little bit tougher?
I don't think so, because his government has clearly gone the other way to make Canadians far less safe. There's no question about it. I see this every day. I mean, this is literally what I live and breathe. I get a lot of hate from people who do what I do for saying what I say, because I see it. So no, the only reason I could see him being a little tougher, because they did do some pretty decent bail changes. They made a couple bail changes, Elias, that were good in response to unanimous premiers.
And police chiefs,
yes, and police chiefs calling for it. The only reason they will move a little bit, off of the woke Olympics or from the far left of, victims have no rights and criminals have all of them. I'm being somewhat facetious and, over the top. But my point to you, Elias, is the only way they'll move to something more law and order is if the Canadian public demands it, the polling demands it, and we see, if you trust the polls, and I don't, Elias, full disclosure, I don't, that, the Poilievre Conservative Party is really now way ahead and he'd be prime minister tomorrow. If that makes the justice minister go, you know what, maybe I should tell Canadians that I live and breathe their safety, that maybe a woman should be able to walk down the street at night without worrying about being gang attacked, or maybe we shouldn't have 150 guys in Calgary and Edmonton fighting each other with batons and pipes. People can Google what I'm talking about. Maybe if the justice minister just came out and said, yeah, I live and breathe to make sure everybody has the same level of safety and security that he does or the prime minister does with his private RCMP detail. Why should you be, more safe if you're the prime minister than a person going to work in school in Canada in a country that 30 years ago was safe but now isn't. That just boggles my mind, and it's the only thing the justice minister should care about.
Ari, some would call you opinionated. I'll leave it there.
I've been called worse.
Ari, thanks so much. Great discussion.
Good to be with you, Alex.
Criminal defense lawyer Ari Goldkind right there.